Alright, how is it going YouTube? Today I am continuing the 4-pip challenge playthrough, which has a pretty self-explanatory name, but just for clarity, the goal is to spend less than 4 pips on any spell, which greatly reduces our arsenal. Last time we quickly cleaned out the 3 streets of their bosses and side quests. This time we'll be heading into Colossus Boulevard to wrap up Wizard City, at least for now. Colossus Boulevard isn't actually much longer than any of the 3 streets individually, but the difficulty in Colossus comes from it being the first area in which 2 enemies can enter the dueling circle at a time. Realistically, it won't be much harder than, say, Triton Avenue, but the street mobs have much more health than other areas, which means that I'll probably be required to sandstorm in every battle just for efficiency. I'm still not too sure how long this episode will be, given that it is just one street, but we'll see. To begin, we accept the quest Colossal Trouble, which gives access to Colossus Boulevard. Also, I didn't mention it in the first episode, but I apologize for swapping between Classic mode between the intro and episode 1. My nostalgia really only lets me play Wizard City in Classic mode. The first quest of the zone asks us to kill a few snowmen and gobblers. Thankfully, when they remade the zone, it seems they separated the packs of multiple different mobs in the same area. For example, these snowmen used to also be grouped with gobblers, meaning that you could be trying to pull 2 snowmen, but accidentally end up pulling 1 snowman and 1 gobbler. The real difficulty from having 2 mods per combat isn't that I always have to fish for AoEs, it's that now there are 2 enemies attacking me at the same time. Fighting these guys, my health drops a bit farther than usual compared to any of the previous streets. The gobbler scavengers play out about the same, just with less health than the snowmen. For the most part, I'll be skipping over mob battles, but these last 2 were just to show what they'll look like from now on, in case anyone isn't familiar with the game. We turn in the quest, and the next one asks us to head to Ravenwood and speak with the Ice Professor. Of course, by head to Ravenwood I mean use the teleport to dorm room. I accidentally continued the mainline quests by getting too close to Bartleby and triggering his dialogue. He basically talks about other worlds and traveling between them, yada yada. We really didn't miss much. After turning in that quest, I pop level 12 and get called to return to the balance teacher. It's a little unfortunate since the reason I accidentally progressed the story 2 seconds ago was because I wanted to check the balance teacher to see if he had anything to teach at level 11. Oh well. Anyway, he asks us to go beat up some monsters in the Elemental School's towers. In the Storm Tower, we fight the Kraken's older but less successful brother. In the Ice Tower, we fight a Colossus, which is fitting, given the episode. And in the Fire Tower, we fight a bird. Next, we head over to Triton Avenue for a bit of dialogue, then head back and learn Balance Blade. If you're unfamiliar with card types in Wizard101, I'll basically say that the Balance Blade we just trained from the quest will stack with the pet Balance Blade. There are a few types of spells that stack, but the main types are Trained, Enchanted, Item, and Treasure. Needless to say, we're going to be doing quite a lot of blade stacking throughout this series. Heading back to Colossus Boulevard, we're given mostly painless task of gathering some stinkweed from around the area. After handing that in, we're asked to kill more gobblers, this time of the scouting variety. Before that, if you head to the house near our quest giver NPC, you'll find a spell trainer. She mainly teaches school dispels, but as you can see, she also teaches reshuffle, which, well, shuffles all used or discarded spells back into your deck, minus the reshuffled card itself. It'll probably be pretty handy for us since we're limited to such low damage spells. I said in the first episode that we got it here, but I guess I was only half right. Turns out we can only train it at level 20. Also, don't ask me why she teaches Life Trap when all other schools get their traps via quests. These gobblers are effectively the same as the previous ones, just with more health. They are balanced, so they resisted my sandstorm, but not by enough to live. Balance might actually be the hardest school to deal with the same school resistance, since most other schools learn a prism quite early on, which converts your school of damage into the opposite. Since Balance doesn't have an opposite, we'll have to rely on the single target spell Spectral Blast, which we learn down the line. We turn that quest in and pick up the next. I also grabbed the side quest nearby. I placed a teleport mark in front of Mindy because I was preparing for the long trek to Gobblestone Castle, but as it turns out I forgot they added teleporters to Wizard City again, so maybe it wasn't necessary. Our first boss, not counting the school quest enemies, is Prince Gobblestone. This is the first of a number of cursed fights for us. As I mentioned earlier, Balance has a tough time dealing with same school enemies until Spectral Blast. Well, this guy and his minion are both balanced. How fun. I double blade and throw a hex on the boss just for good measure, and while the minion goes down to a sandstorm, it's not quite enough for Gobblestone himself. I end up finishing him with the troll. If the questline is the same as it was a decade ago, we might have to fight him a second time later. That would be assuming I forgot the 200 IQ play of placing down a teleport mark right in front of the king. The boss and the king are technically in separate areas, and the area the king is in isn't really a part of the dungeon. So throwing down a mark there will let you teleport directly to him and skip having to fight Gobblestone again. Did you notice that this area has a lot of gobblers to fight? Yeah, me too. These are more of the balance guys. Unfortunately, I fizzle Sandstorm, but it's actually kinda nice because I get to use Locust Swarm for once. Somewhat related, I'm glad they added the School Pip system. I've been entertaining a few ways Balance could use that system, especially since Balance's blade applies to all damage types, universally. The side quest for this area wants me to pick up some barrels around the zone, so I'm doing that in between fighting the gobblers. These guys are ice, so no more resistance, for now at least. After beating up every gobbler on the street, we are asked to defeat Baron Greebly and Baron Rotunda. Greebly is closer, so naturally I start with him. There isn't much to say about Greebly, or even Rotunda for that case. Rotunda's a little harder, only because his minion has more health, otherwise they're really not too difficult. In fact, these are the last actual bosses on Colossus Boulevard. That's right, there's only 3 of them. Time to head back to the king. Maybe the teleport mark trick doesn't work anymore. Or maybe it does and I just did it wrong. Well, there's another way to get around doing the boss. So, the game sucks you into combat once you pass an invisible line, right? The trick is to get pulled, flee, then port back into the dungeon. The invisible pull line only works once, so when you get back in, you can walk right on past.
Let me in! Let me in!
There really is no way around fighting him again, is there? We talk to the Gobbler King one more time, then head back to Mindy and wrap up Colossus Boulevard. We also hit level 13 after turning in the last quest. Actually, I forgot to finish the side quest in Colossus Boulevard, so I quickly turned it in and was then asked to fight more snowmen. After we do that, then we're actually finished with the zone. I'll be honest, the zone wasn't nearly as difficult as I was anticipating. Truth be told, this challenge doesn't have as much effect on this area either. For the most part, using 4-pip AoEs in Colossus is expected, so there wasn't much out of the ordinary yet. I still believe Colossus Boulevard was worth completing, if only for the experience gained. After turning in the Z quest and the book quests, we ended a nice level 13. But before we can move on to Krokotopia, there's still one more street in Wizard City, which is Crab Alley. I honestly forgot about this area when I said Colossus Boulevard was the last street in episode 1. It won't take long though, and if this episode ends up being short, I'm expecting Crab Alley to be even shorter. Less than 5 minutes probably. It's easier than Colossus Boulevard. I'm a bit less confident that Crab Alley is worth spending an episode on, but again, I'd like to cover as much of the game as possible. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.